Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Mike McCormick with Advanced Criminology here in Owings Mills, Maryland. Today is March the 15th, 2018, and tonight's discussion happens to be with the recent information. We kind of lost sight of this with the videos that were taken up on Bennett Place. I think I made mention in the very last video where I talked about videos that we haven't gotten, the public hasn't seen yet. And just recently, as reported by the news media today, that the police department seized a video from a grocery store on the corner of Fremont and Bennett Place during the week that Detective Suter was murdered. Now, this happened on, as you guys know, it happened on November 15th, 2017. And so the typically what happens in cases where the police department has to take video cameras and things of that nature that might have caught glimpses of a potential criminal act taking place, there's proper procedures that have to be conducted to take that property, and those procedures fall strictly under the Fourth Amendment of this country. That police departments cannot just arbitrarily take your property, no matter what, unless they can show and demonstrate why they would have to circumvent the Fourth Amendment through several different reasonings. One of those would be in cases of exigent circumstances, which falls under the Fourth Amendment, which is the warrantless exception rule that they talk about in criminal justice and in the law. And in this case here, I would imagine that the police department took the video because they were looking to see whether or not they could backtrack a particular suspect in that area and go through a number of suspects who live in that area and frequent that particular grocery store, and see if they can show that film to people locally to identify some of those guys that might have been in and around that store during that day, perhaps during that week on Bennett Place, that were either local guys or someone new to the area. And so that's why they took the video. However, there's a process that's involved in when you confiscate property of someone here in Maryland, that you have to leave a receipt with the owner of that property describing that property and the condition that that property's in once you take it and the owner signs off on it. And you also should tell the owner as well when they should expect that property back. Well, in this case here, the owner of that grocery store never ever heard from the police department. He had made numerous complaints to the Baltimore Police Department through the commissioner's office about the property, and no one ever got back to him in reference to that. And here it is now, 4 months have gone by, and this gentleman virtually didn't have any security system in his store since it was already confiscated. And so he filed suit for the property, and the property is valued, he put a value on it when he filed his suit in district court of $10,000. And he filed what they call a motion, let me see, it's a legal motion called a motion in detain. And what that is basically is saying that it's a wrongful taking of personal property by an individual, and he has a greater right to that property than the police department. And at this point in time, he does have a greater right. Initially, he probably didn't in the interest of justice because they were trying to solve a case, a homicide case, as quick as possible. And so maybe at that particular time, he didn't have the right at that point because it was an exigent circumstances situation where they were trying to locate a suspect as quick as possible. But as time went by and the trail grew cold in reference to Detective Suter's murder, that gentleman had to get his property back. Now, whether the police department kept the film, that's one thing. But then again, the film is still his. Okay, so we don't know what they did with the film. I'm sure they looked at it. Again, the public has never saw it. You got to ask yourself, folks, and this is common sense. I think I can count probably about 50 closed circuit TV videos last year that were shown on local news medias here in Baltimore, where immediately after homicides within a week in Baltimore or major robberies, we were able to see some type of surveillance videos of individuals either pointing guns at people, robbing them, shooting people dead in the street, people leaving to and from particular locations where homicides are taking place. And each time, Crime Stoppers, Metro Crime Stoppers, always asked, if you can identify anyone in this picture, please contact your local police department ASAP. Okay, and that is designed so that arrests can be made fairly quickly on some of these cases and identifications can be made. But I find it strange that in a killing of a police officer, that no video, and now we know that video was confiscated from that grocery store on the corner. You know, why didn't we see portions of that video on TV to notify the public, you know, if they recognize any people in the video, you know, to give us a call? And so this is just so strange how a police department on one hand can ask for the public's cooperation. And probably, I know I saw about 50 videos just last year, and they just released a couple in the last couple days of holdups and homicides with individuals. But yet, the murder of a police officer does not warrant any TV time for videos that were confiscated in reference to this officer's murder. It's mind-boggling to me. And so the gentleman, getting back to him, he went ahead and filed in district court his $10,000 claim. And I'm almost sure they'll either give it back to him or to prevail. The problem is if you give it back to him, it has to be in working order. So now he has to be able to get a technician to come to his store, probably remount that unit, and to check and see whether or not it's working. Then if it's not working, then the police department's going to have to reimburse him for that particular system. So it's just, you know, but you know what? Everything I'm talking about flows with the nature of how this police department does business. And I know this specifically because during the Freddie Gray case, there came a time where video was confiscated from the King grocery store up on North Avenue. And I talked to the owner personally. And I asked him, did the police department confiscate your video? And he said, yeah. I said, well, did you get it back? And he showed me a receipt of what they took from him. He had an actual receipt. So I know the receipt system does exist when the police department confiscates property, particularly in cases like this. So I was just curious as to why this gentleman had not gotten his property back yet, and why procedures from the police department wasn't followed. And again, we know they don't know. We know they do not like following procedures because it was indicated in the 177-page report from the Bureau of Justice. So this is just one other thing when you talk about community service, when you talk about servicing the patrons of this city, when you talk about business owners looking for, you know, assistance from the police department. This is certainly not a good public relations issue, simply because, you know, you're there as a police department to ensure that the rules and regulations are followed as it governs property that are owned by citizens of this city. So I just wanted to, you know, mention that particular issue. The other thing is, just recently, the Commissioner D'Souza indicated that there will now be a request for outside review of the Detective Suter case. And it's interesting because normally when these things take place, these reviews, I've looked at several reviews over the past 20 years of commissions that came in to investigate police corruption. They generally consist of about 5 different people on that particular committee. And there'll be people from the criminal justice world as also. And you know what? Why don't they change it up, you know, this year? And why don't they put one civilian on that particular board, that review board, out of the 5 or out of the 7 that they may choose, just so that citizen can follow the process of how these things are investigated and how they're done. Just again, that's just my, you know, I'm asking that would be a nice thing to have citizens to be involved in the process in this investigation. See the other thing here. Okay, so the police department has said that they also are working with the FBI to identify other officers involved in corruption case that stems from testimony from officers from the Gun Trace Task Force a few months ago. And so, you know, we'll be looking to see, you know, who's going to be charged, what additional officers. I can name 3 or 4 officers off the bat that we don't even need, just based upon what they did, according to certain indictments. They should have been arrested. They should have been locked up and charged. And yet, we still don't hear that. You know, and if the police commissioner wants me to point them out, he can give me a call. Just give me a call, send me I can take you back to the indictments where individuals have indicated and implicated themselves. Now, if they were given immunity, then, you know, let's tell the citizens of Baltimore that certain police officers in that particular case, that gun squad trace force, were given immunity, then tell us they were given immunity. But don't sit here and have us wondering about why these folks shouldn't be charged, because it's clear that the evidence in that particular case, where at least 2 or 3 officers were involved in the death of a gentleman, you know, in the Gwynn Oak area back in 2010. And so I don't see why they could not be charged, you know, and let's just see where we're going with this, because it doesn't make sense at this point. This is not a guessing game at this point. You already have the information. So, you know, that's all we're asking as a citizen, just to do your jobs, and so we can move forward with this thing. And again, I'm inclined to believe, along with the Public Defender's Office, and they've gone on record with this, that they certainly believe that there's a whole lot more individuals who are involved in corruption in the city police department. Everybody's just kind of laying low right now because of the incidents with the Gun Trace Task Force. You know, and I'm going to stand on this, you know, probably till I die. But you can't convince me that there are no command staff, you know, at least 2 or 3 that I can think of, that had knowledge of what the Gun Trace Task Force was doing. And yet we still do not hear about these particular individuals, whether or not charges are going to be brought forth, whether they're going to be departmental misconduct charges or criminal charges. We just don't know. But I wanted to make this video just simply because the news had come out in reference to the gentleman who had not received his property back, and why the police department continually does not want to follow its own policies and regulations governing property. You know, when the Gun Trace Task Force just walks into people's houses with a warrant that's forged, you know, a judge's name on it, and you can do that kind of stuff in violation of the 4th Amendment of the Constitution of this country, that's a serious problem. It's a huge problem. When you can take a video camera, snatch it off the side of a building, and I don't know how they took it down and whether they damaged it or not, we'll find that out, you know, how you can do that, and you don't leave a citizen some type of documentation saying that you confiscated the video. It's unbelievable. You know, and then the poor citizen is stuck out there after 4 months of trying to get his property back, and he can't. You know, it's unbelievable. But trust me, usually when these things hit the media, they'll probably call him in, either give him back his property or tell him they're going to buy a new, you know, unit, and somehow or another, this explanation will go, somehow or another, sir, in all the turmoil of what was going on for the past 3 months with the transitioning of the police commissioner and the new staff, that somewhere along the line, the officers just forgot that they didn't even couldn't return it to you when you requested for it. Or somehow or another, we know you sent 1 million letters to our office and somebody from the police department never got back to you. See, these are why people do not want to cooperate with the police department. These little follow-up things that police officers and the police department should do, the small things, is called customer service. So customer service is a big deal, and people respond better when they're treated well in the customer service department. The customer service department sucks, then you trust me, that customer is not going to be happy. That's all I got right now. My name is Mike McCormick. I'm with Advanced Criminology here in Owings Mills, and I thank you for your time. I'd like to get some more subscribers to the channel this month. Also, if you like it, give me a thumbs up. If you don't like it, give me a thumbs down, and also leave your comments as well, and I'll get back to you. Thanks a lot, guys.